Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk. I'm your host, Denise Rolark Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer. Today on Let's Talk, we are marking Nelson Mandela Day. That is tomorrow. We're going to be amplifying emerging voices and unpacking national issues that are shaping our community. Before we start our program, just a few reminders to pick up this week's issue of the Washington Informer. Another issue we're proud of, and I hope that you will pick it up. It's available on newsstands. We're about maybe 600 locations throughout the DMV. So please, if you see a copy, go ahead and pick it up. As you know, it's free on newsstands. But if you can't get the printed copy, you can pull up the digital edition online by visiting our website at washingtoninformer.com. And while you're on our website, please consider becoming a subscriber by clicking the link on the website. Also, follow us on our social media platforms, Facebook, IG, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. And while watching this broadcast, please share it with a friend. This week we pause to recognize July 18th, Nelson Mandela Day. It is a moment to reflect on the South African leader's legacy of justice, reconciliation, and the belief that change is possible, even when the road is long and the odds are high. To help us mark this day in a meaningful way, we welcome now former South African Ambassador Reuben Brigety and our international reporter, Maya Trujillo. It's my pleasure to bring them both on. Nice to meet you, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us. And Maya, good to see you. Take it away.
All right, thank you, Ambassador Brigety. Again, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. So, you bring a perspective, as I understand, that has been shaped by many years of public service and global engagement. So, do you mind just starting off by telling us a little bit about yourself and about your service in South Africa?
Sure. Well, first, it's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Reuben Brigety. I served as the U.S. Ambassador to the Republic of South Africa, based in Pretoria, South Africa, from August of 2022 until January 2025. I was President Biden's personal representative to the Republic of South Africa. I previously had served as the U.S. Ambassador to the African Union from 2013 to 2015 under President Obama, and I've had a number of other Africa-focused engagements, both in U.S. government and academia as well.
Wonderful, thank you. So then, what does Mandela Day and Nelson Mandela's legacy mean in today's world?
Well, first of all, it's worth obviously just knowing some basics about Nelson Mandela, or Madiba, as he was affectionately known. He was born in July 18th, 1918, in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. He is a Xhosa, one of the major tribes in South Africa. He joined the African National Congress and was one of the most important activists and actors for the ANC in the liberation struggle. He was part of the famous Rivonia trials, in which he was tried essentially for treason for his activities, and with many others, instead of being given a death sentence, which the apartheid government felt would turn him to a martyr, he was given essentially a life sentence and was sent to to Robben Island, which is an island off the coast of Cape Town, where he was in prison for some 24 years. And what is remarkable about Mandela is not only in terms of his level of perseverance while he was in prison with many of his other colleagues on Robben Island for many decades, but crucially, as the apartheid struggle continued, and when he was released from prison, he emerged in a spirit of reconciliation rather than one of revenge. And that was one of the things that helped to set South Africa on the path of full multi-party democracy, and what for sure is one of the greatest human rights struggles in all of human history.
So then, Mandela was a prime figure in leading through political division. What leadership lessons from him feel most urgent in today's world?
There are a couple. One of the things that Mandela was famous for saying is that it is impossible until it is done, meaning that it may seem absolutely impossible to achieve a particular objective for peace, for reconciliation, for justice, for equality, but one has to continue to work for it. And as you continue to work and you actually are able to achieve a better outcome for all of a community, all of humanity, then that can be done. And one of the things that doing a hard thing teaches you is that you can do hard things. And that's why it's so important to reflect upon that legacy as our world continues to grapple with any number of challenges, from questions of hunger to war and peace to economic development, etc. One of the other lessons that I learned in South Africa is there's this beautiful phrase that South Africans use, and it goes, "Let us work to find each other." And what is meant by that is when you have people that disagree, let us agree to agree on the things on which we can agree, and then use the basis of that agreement in order to build our respective muscle memory and our levels of trust to be able to address those issues on which we may be further apart, but on which agreement may be possible. And I think these are both foundational lessons that apply to all of us in the modern world.
Beautifully put. So then, looking at South Africa specifically, considering recent events such as Ambassador Bozel's criticism of affirmative action laws or the wave of anti-immigration protests that have been there happening there recently, why is the spirit of Mandela Day and its namesake especially critical there?
Well, as it relates certainly to many of the challenges that are happening domestically in South Africa right now, and just to clue in many of your listeners who may not be following this very closely, after the end of apartheid, South Africa made clear that they stood in solidarity with all of Africa. And so they've been receiving a number of immigrants, millions of them, from not only further up in Africa, but quite frankly, even further afield from places like Pakistan that have crossed into their borders. And this is also at a time when the economy continues to be very sluggish in South Africa, where they have a really, really significant unemployment rate, something like about just over 30% overall, something like over 60% for youth. And so there has been a really profound backlash in South Africa against these illegal immigrants. And so one of the things that certainly we know Nelson Mandela would have thought, because he said it, is that it's important for Africans to be in solidarity with each other, and for sure not to address these issues in a violent manner. Now, every sovereign country has the absolute right and indeed the obligation and responsibility to determine who is coming in its borders and to set their own immigration policy. South Africa has that responsibility. The United States of America has this responsibility. And I'm equally sure that Mandela would have said that even as we grapple with this challenge, it must be done in a humane way, and done in a way that, in the spirit of Ubuntu, which is this beautiful South African phrase that means I am because we are, that in the spirit of Ubuntu, we must address this, respecting our common humanity.
Thank you. So, having served as the U.S. ambassador to South Africa, was your perception of Mandela impacted at all after living there? Was there anything that you learned or anything that was just put into perspective that may have stood out to you or surprised you?
Well, I think probably what is most surprising is, and I think is quite frankly unfortunate, is some of the contemporary perspectives that younger South Africans have towards Mandela. I think many people of my generation and older look to Mandela as the icon of the freedom struggle, the dismantling of apartheid. We now have a generation of South Africans that are called the so-called born frees, that weren't even born during apartheid, or maybe were really small children. And those people are now in their 20s and 30s. And they are grappling with these very profound issues of inequality and unemployment that continue to persist in South Africa. And so one of the things that's really quite disheartening is hearing these young people disparage Mandela, who say that he may have given us political freedom, but we don't have jobs and we can't eat a ballot paper. But one of the things that I would often say when I heard things like that is that, Mandela and his generation brought you political freedom, but it's everybody else's job to continue to build on that. And in democracy, the price of being a free people is that nobody's coming to save us. We have to do this ourselves. And so one would hope that rather than disparaging the memory of one of the greatest humans ever to live, that there would be a renewed movement, particularly amongst younger South Africans and also the current political leadership, to focus on the next stage of what freedom means. And that next stage of freedom is economic freedom. In an economy that works for the vast majority of South Africans, and that is actually true to the spirit of struggle that their forefathers went through.
So what do you think the first step to really making that economic freedom possible is?
Well, the nature of the South African economy is challenged because it still is rooted in some of the basic structures that existed before the end of apartheid. There's something, for example, called spatial apartheid, where Blacks and coloreds, which is a term of art that's used in South Africa, were essentially forced to live in concentrations, often very, very poor, often very far from where the economic opportunity is. And so that spatial apartheid, even 30 plus years after the end of apartheid, has actually been really difficult to break. So there are still, massive townships that surround major cities like Johannesburg and Cape Town, where vast majorities of people of color, Blacks and coloreds, live that are actually really far from the economic activity. And so a large part of what has to happen is to work through economic incentives, through tax incentives, through the engagement of businesses, to actually figure out how you actually move economic activity closer to where people live, so that they can actually participate in that engagement. I think another thing that continues to have to be done is to look for additional foreign investment into South Africa. So on the one hand, South Africa as a country represents almost 12% of the entire GDP of the entire continent of Africa. But two things are simultaneously true. The first is that, as I mentioned, they have a very high unemployment rate, and it also objectively remains the most unequal society on the planet in terms of the distance between those that are wealthy and the vast majority of those that are at the bottom. And so the question has to be, how do you have a political will of a government that not only works to address that poverty gap, but also helps to achieve levels of services, and also that works to bring in new investment, to create new investment opportunities in the context of so many changes that we're seeing in the global economy right now. So it benefits everybody.
Thank you for that. And then I think my last question is just, what are some actions that our viewers can take on Mandela Day that capture the essence of what he stood for?
Sure. Well, I think it's no surprise to anybody that our own country is going through a level of, pretty significant political polarization. And I would take us back to, again, this beautiful phrase that we have to work to find each other. We are all Americans. There are people of good faith who are fellow citizens who see the world really quite differently, on the basis of where we live, on the basis of whatever our religious or other cultural background may be. But I am absolutely certain that as Americans and the spirit of Ubuntu, we have a much more in common than our politics would allow us to believe. And I think that we all need to have the same courage that Nelson Mandela demonstrated, in order to reach across these lines that have been drawn to divide us, and look to find ways to find each other and to agree where we can.
Well, thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate your insights. I hope you have a good, wonderful rest of your day. Denise, back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great conversation, Maya. And I had a couple of questions for Ambassador Brigety myself. I was curious about, and maybe you did ask, what the embassy on Massachusetts Avenue if he had any knowledge if they're doing any events here in DC on tomorrow on Nelson Mandela Day. I'm glad we took some time to honor him. And I have to say, I did have the opportunity to visit Robben Island in South Africa and to speak to some of the prisoners who were held there during, I mean, they do tours now of Robben Island. So they were there when Mandela was there. And, you know, it's just fascinating out of all that he went through on behalf of the country and was able to come out, become president of the United States, president of South Africa. But yet, as the ambassador said, you know, young people don't really value his leadership. And once upon a time, I did ask while visiting, because I've been there several times, you know, if they teach the history of the apartheid movement, just like we want to know, our kids need to know the history of slavery and the history of, you know, emancipation and the history of the civil rights movement and all that, you know, whether it's being taught in the school, whether there's a curriculum there. So anyway, would have loved to have talked to him about that as well. But I totally enjoyed the interview and learned a lot, and glad that he was able to join us. So thank you so very, very much. All right, so now, I mean, we have a packed lineup of voices and stories you don't want to miss. The Washington Informer and Washington Informer Charities are proud to have hired 7 interns this summer. And if you pick up a copy of this week's edition of the Washington Informer, you'll see them on page 2. It'll be there for a couple of weeks. We are proud of these young folks. They are a dynamic group of amazing young journalists who let all of us feel comfortable that it's okay for the future to be in their hands. Jordan Armstead, for example, who's going to be with us, is a journalism and religious studies double major at Elon University in North Carolina. And she will join assistant editor Jada Ingleton in a conversation about her recent story on Target in the community. Yes, Target, the Target on Target. So she's going to talk with Jada about that. Jordan also experienced a special moment, one that says a lot about the climate we are all navigating. And then in exchange, Jordan interviewed Target Vice President Kiera Fernandez and asked directly about the Target DEI protest. Our other intern, Tatiana Allen, a student at Howard University pursuing a bachelor's degree in journalism who specialized studies in political science, will talk to, again, our amazing assistant editor who also joined us as an intern. So, you know, the future's bright for these folks. But she's going to Jada will talk to Tatiana about Tatiana's recent story on the celebration of the 158th anniversary of the 14th Amendment and the protection of birthright citizenship. This is one of those issues where people have strong opinions, but it's this discussion will focus on the facts, the history, and what the law actually says. And William Daffaa, a recent graduate of the University of Maryland, and fresh off of covering the NFL Draft Source program, will talk about a program that he covered this week, because as you know, the NFL Draft is coming to Washington, D.C. Next year. And they are opening up opportunities. Of course, they're going to come in, they're going to make a lot of money, they're going to bring in all these athletes, but how will district residents and district businesses benefit? And Will was there at the press conference and event earlier this week. And so he's going to share some of the information that came out of that, including some of the opportunities that will exist beyond game day. So I am going to turn this conversation over to a conversation that Jordan and Jada had earlier this week, and then hand it off to Jada.
So Jordan, most recently you had the pleasure of covering what was the event with the ARC, Target? Tell us a little bit about it.
So I was introduced to the Bullseye Builds initiative. It is a Target community service initiative that they started in 2024. And for the most part, they select a couple of states, a couple of neighborhoods across the nation, and they do some community service act. So far, they have been able to help 13 areas, and it's $1 million investment from Target. So we were invited to cover the Bullseye Build project in Ward 8, a collaboration with building bridges across the river, as well as life pieces, masterpieces, and just a bunch of nonprofits in Ward 8. And volunteers, Target volunteers, about 100, over 100 of them, they came out, they started working on the community garden behind the campus. They started working on nature trails, so like senior citizens have an easier time getting to the community garden, right? And they also painted a brand new mural for the kids to enjoy. So it was a great experience. It was a great project, right? And of course, we also have to talk about how this is 2 years after, or a year after Target announced that they were pulling back on their DEI initiatives, pressures from the Trump administration. And, I got to talk to some Target execs, ask them, is this for real? Like, are the DEI coming back? Or is this just a front? And I got some really good answers.
And what were some of the answers? I love to hear a little bit about, you also talked to some employees who were able to step in and say, one thing is a company statement and one thing is what you're actually getting. So tell us a little bit about what that response was while you were out there.
So I'll start with the worker, because I feel like that's the opinion that we want to hear most from. I talked to a man named Carlos King. He is a worker at Target in the DMV area. He's from Ward 7 or Ward 8. He's from the DMV area, right? He's been with Target for, I believe, 10, 13 years. And I asked him, I said, this initiative is great. This community garden is wonderful. I'm glad you guys came out for this, but what is really happening, right? DEI, the previous CEO of Target, announced in an internal memo that they were pulling back on DEI initiatives, including like programs that encourage Black and minority-owned businesses, and they were going to stop diversity surveys to see how their diversity in the company, right? These were real promises made by the Target CEO that's no longer there. And I asked Mr. King, I asked him, how are you feeling about this? And he told me that he did not feel like DEI had left from the company, right, as a worker. And I was very surprised by this, as a consumer, because if a CEO promises something, I expect the promises to be fulfilled, right? But yeah, but Mr. King said that as a worker, he did not feel like DEI ever left the company. He felt that with the Bullseye Builds initiative and with other community service acts from Target, that they never left the community, right? They never stopped serving the community. And he said that one statement from one CEO should not define the company. And I thought that was important.
Powerful. And what about the Target exec that you spoke to? Did they have a similar take?
Yes. So I talked to Kira Fernandez. She is currently the president of the Target Foundation. I asked her the same question of whether or not, DEI was coming back. And she held up the statement that DEI had never left. She said that a lot of consumers, a lot of people, they don't understand, or they may not understand at the time how businesses shifts, how missions of businesses shift, right? She said that community service was always in the Target's DNA, and it will always be there. And, once again, a statement from one CEO, a statement from one exec, right, was never going to change that. She held up the point that Target has never left the community and will never leave the community as long as they serve.
And what is some of the impact that we can see, you know, specifically with this revitalization happening in Ward 8? What do you think the impact will be for Ward 8 residents?
Well, you know, the campus that they were working on, it houses two private free tuition schools, right? The Washington School for Girls and another one. It also holds a lot of nonprofits that operate in Ward 7 and 8 and 6, right? And, you know, with this new community garden, with these nature trails that have fresh ground on them, right? With this mural that kids can go see, right? They're also designing a rope course that will be open to not just the kids on campus, but also Ward 7 and 8 residents. I think this is a really good start for DC residents to see that Target is coming back to the community, or at least trying to put effort into coming back into the community. All these residents will be able to use the community garden. The community garden also hosts Food and Fridays. It is a program with Building Bridges, where they host a farmer's market, and they give away all this food, right? They give away mushrooms and tomatoes, give away free flowers, give away seedlings that people can grow at home, right? And all these residents, they're going to be able to come back into their own neighborhood. This is not in some deserted place, right? The people live here, right? They're going to be able to walk across the street, take a bus to a community garden, be in nature, get free vegetables, organic food, right? And, you know, kids can run around and see the mural and enjoy the rope course, right? It is supposed to be a place of relief, apparently. And this is what the CEO of Building Bridges told me. As you can see, that Building Bridges is getting me.
It gets a lot of people. I mean, it's building bridges across the river, building bridges across the say it 4 times as fast. But no, I mean, that does sound like a very transformative movement. You know, beautifying the area can have a lot lasting effect on a lot of different things in different communities, especially when they need it. So looking forward to seeing the art farm, looking forward to seeing what more can come from this partnership as well.
Yes.
And just to close us out, Jordan, why don't you tell our viewers what more they can expect from you in the coming weeks?
So, like you mentioned, I will be helping out with the back to school edition, where we're going to try and reach the kids, the parents, the administrators, everybody involved in the education system. I had just completed the River Road Mafia Mahafa story about the African cemetery that is under threat in Bethesda, Maryland, right? I'm working on a new piece about boycotts, actually, how effective the recent boycotts have been, what is an effective boycott, and how can a boycott end. This was all inspired by the apparent rumor that Target boycott has now ended, right? So I will be working on that. And, you know, I will just be with the Washington Informer, whatever story they throw at me, I'm going to pick up and I'm going to do my best to produce content. So I'm really excited. Tell me what is your role position?
Yes, Kira Fernandez, KIRA-FERNANDEZ. And I'm the Executive Vice President of Community and Stakeholder Engagement and also President of the Target Foundation.
Okay, so to give you some background, we're covering this event because the way this event is being presented to the community and to some community members is that prior to there was a boycott to Target because of the decline in DEI initiatives. And the way it's being presented to the community is like, oh, you know, the boycott is over, we're back in the community, we're back providing. Can you give me any thoughts on that?
Sure, well, what I can tell you is we've never left the community. Target is the byproduct of the Dayton-Hudson Corporation, which has been focused on communities, belonging, inclusion, investing in the people that we serve, because we understand if you invest in the community and take care of the community will take care of you. That's actually not new to Target. That is deeply rooted in our history for over 100 years. And Target as a company itself, we have 2,000 stores. We are in all 50 states. We have over 415,000 team members. And we do 1 million hours of volunteerism every single year. So being invested in the communities is not new. I started working for Target as a store executive right out of college. And I worked in the store in my community, which is what so many of the folks here do every single day. That's our story. So we're not here because of anything other than it's deeply rooted in our DNA. To take care of people, to be in community because we are a community.
Okay. Could you acknowledge that there were any declines in the DEI initiatives regarding target corporations? Or
what I will tell you is there's shifts that happen in the business all of the time. So we've had a long-standing history of being really focused on inclusive workspaces, accessible workspaces, investing in diverse and represented organizations, people. Our team is 50% women, more than 50% people of color. And you see that represented everywhere we go, in our stores and our distribution centers. And so I think that there's a lot of conversations that have happened on the topic where folks just don't have the complete knowledge and understanding of what happens in businesses, what happens in organizations. So my team and I are focused on the future and doing what we do every day. This work isn't new to us. We've been doing this. My predecessors did this work. It's just a part of how our company operates and what we believe in, which is inclusion for everybody.
Okay. Can you tell me what is the grander purpose or mission with this particular event? And speak on why did you guys choose this location?
Sure. So this has been an ongoing partner for us. So again, I said we have stores across the country. Washington, D.C., the DMV, Maryland area is a really important focus for our team, for our guests, and for our communities. So part of what my team does is we work very closely with local partners and organizations that are focused on the same things that we're focused on. And that's really investing in communities so families can thrive, bringing vibrancy to neighborhoods, thinking about how we create economic opportunity, and investing in emerging creatives and culture. So when we think about Scott and what his team is doing here in this particular place, the culmination of 15 organizations that are all working in service of creating opportunities for small businesses, for founders, access to capital, nonprofit organizations where people can find basic needs that are met. If they're going through some challenge or whatever the case may be, the community knows that work and knows those needs certainly greater than any organization can. So part of our work is to be hyper-locally focused, community-led, in partnership with organizations that are investing in people like we do. So that's exactly what they do here every single day. They're really focused on how to bridge and create bridges across greater DC and the DMV area. That's about lifting people up and helping them, provide them with the needs that they have right then and there. And this event is an example of what we think about vibrancy in neighborhoods, beautifying neighborhoods. Not revitalizing necessarily, because that infers that the community doesn't already have what they need, versus we want to be in lockstep with you and bring vibrancy to space that's already beautiful.
Okay. And then this is just a fun question. What is the most exciting thing you can't wait to see coming from this event, coming from this project?
I mean, I think what's most exciting is what happens when we leave.
Okay.
And that is the community has a space that has had some transformation in it, where then the people that live here every day are able to come in, be in the garden, walk the path, see that there's been refreshment to the paint. Kids can come here, that it's a space that we left the space better than we found it. That's what's most exciting. So I won't get to see the results of that next week or tomorrow, but the community will, and that's why we're here.
Thank you so much. And once again, that was Jordan Armstead speaking with Kiera Fernandez, an executive at Target, while covering one of the most recent projects that you can actually enjoy at the Art Farm in Southeast DC. And thank you to Jordan for that. Thank you to Jordan for hosting that conversation with me. I am Jada Ingleton, WI content editor, who also has the pleasure of working closely with our class of interns this summer one of which who will be joining me momentarily, William Daffaa, hailing from University of Maryland. But it's been a phenomenal summer. One thing that we'll get to talk about that our interns are working on is our back to school edition, which is coming up next month. So let's just get right into it. Will, hopefully you're there. There we go. Hi, Will. Good morning or afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Will, why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers?
Of course. My name is William Daffaa. I recently graduated from the University of Maryland, and I studied journalism there. And now I am an intern with the Washington Informer currently, focusing on sports, business, anything the staff needs me to do, I'm there.
Excellent. We love it, and we love to have him. We will get to talk a little bit about Will's coverage in a second. Will, how is the post-grad air, though? I mean, it's hot, so it's mixed with heat. But
yeah, it's very hot outside. Very hot. A little bit smoky from the Canadian wildfires, unfortunately. But yeah.
But how do you feel? Because you just graduated this semester that just passed, 2026, right?
Yes. I recently graduated. And yeah, I'm feeling good. Still looking for a full-time employment position, but yeah, feeling good, feeling out the journalism landscape. So excited to get out there and show the journalism world my best work and my best foot forward. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us again, Will. To transition right into our conversation for today, I know we want to focus on your most recent story, which was covering the NFL Draft Source program, and specifically because they'll be hosting the draft in DC in 2027.
And yes, that's correct, Jada. Washington, D.C. will be hosting the 2027 NFL Draft. And the event I covered last week, Thursday, July 9th, was mainly it's a networking event, but also an introduction to NFL Source partners. And what the NFL Source program does, it reaches out into the local community of the draft city where that draft is being held. It's an initiative that's been going on since 2024, and it's really helped sort of build up local businesses and kind of bring them into the bigger landscape and the big picture, as you can say, as is the NFL draft. And this has been going on in several other cities. In Detroit, the program helped bring in $161.3 million in new spending that was brought to the overall Detroit region, with 2/3 of that also being reinstated long term. So this isn't just an initiative where it's, here you're going to help out with this event and the economic benefits go away. No, that's not the case. Instead, the NFL Source program helps these businesses in the long run, and that's been shown through various other drafts in Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Green Bay. Yeah.
Awesome. And for someone like me who doesn't too much do sports, can you tell me just like a little bit about you mentioned the impact, a little bit of what this will look like. So even outside of draft day, the month, the days leading up to it, how will this shape the district landscape, this program?
This will shape the district landscape in a variety of ways, I will say. Not only are there going to be 1 million+ fans gathered on the National Mall come the end of April, it will also bolster local businesses that have also participated in the event. And keep in mind, when a lot of people think of businesses coming to help out the draft, they're thinking concessions, they're thinking fan zones. No, that's not the case. It's anything from security, from graphic design to merchandise. It's the whole 9 yards, I guess you could say. So, and what the NFL is looking for is businesses that have a good stable footprint in the community, and they want to continue to uplift that, not only obviously just through the draft, but through post-draft, I guess you could say.
For sure. And are there specific, I know the type of business may not be necessarily restricted, but is there requirements, limitations for anyone who might be interested in seeing if their business can get involved?
From what I learned, it is mainly an application process. So what a lot of businesses do is there's an application portal. So you simply just apply on the portal, and the NFL pretty much picks and chooses what businesses participate in the NFL draft source program.
Gosh. Okay, awesome. So in this, was there anything that surprised you working on this story? I mean, I know you yourself are already into sports just regularly. So it's like, is there anything that you yourself learned new in this process?
Yes, I will say I was surprised by the mass amount of the local businesses that are participating. I was able to talk to quite a few of the local businesses, and they honestly could not be happier. They were through the moon and what this would mean for their business, and even businesses who had previously worked for the Commanders at Northwest Stadium. Even they said that this is a totally new ball game. And another thing that surprised me is that it doubled. And I said this previously. It doubled as a networking event and a panel discussion, and just an overall kind of getting these local businesses accustomed and used to talking with the NFL, working with the NFL, and it was a really nice gathering. And yeah, that's what surprised me the most, I'd say. So.
Awesome. So anything milestones between now? Do they have the exact date for the 2027 draft?
Yes, it's going from April 29th to May 1st, 2027.
All right. And so are there any milestones? I mean, well, let me start with this, particularly as it pertains to our Commanders. What are some of the trending topics of the NFL draft?
From what I have seen, what I have read, there's a lot of good prospects coming up through this year's draft, potentially. A lot of good quarterback prospects from big schools such as Ohio State, Indiana, UCLA. Lots of good quarterback prospects. And obviously, I know here in the district, we don't need any quarterback. So we got Jane Daniels. But yeah, that's what I've seen recently.
Awesome. So what about milestones? Is there anything big when it comes to the source program, or even just things coming up? Because I know one of the organizations involved in this are like EventsDC and things like that. So are there any things coming up between now and 2027?
From what I've seen, what I've talked to, I didn't really hear much about major milestones from the people I talked to. I think it's more of just this was also a big milestone, kind of getting everyone introduced to each other. So I think from that, it's just kind of going to be a continued collaborative effort heading into the draft.
Excellent. Well, I mean, like I said, I'm not a sports fan myself, but I love to get in the mix of the hype of, well, I'm sure the energy in DC around this time in 2027 is going to be crazy. So I'm looking forward to that. And definitely looking forward to see what a little bit of that economic long-term impact will look like for our local businesses. As it pertains to the NFL Source draft, or NFL Source program for the draft, is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you'd want to mention or is important for people to know?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. One last thing, this is huge for the DC area because this will be the first major NFL event that the district has hosted since 1940, so before World War II. So it is, yes, haven't hosted a Super Bowl, haven't hosted another draft. So this is huge news for the district.
1940?
Yes, the 1940 draft.
That feels targeted. All these years and no one ever wanted to come back. Well, I know we tried to get, what was it? Was it the World Cup that we tried to
yes, there's a joint bid with Washington, D.C. and Baltimore we tried to get.
Oh my God. Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, this is huge news. This is huge. Yeah, DC is going to be crazy. I mean, speaking of the energy around sports, you've also been doing a little bit of coverage and also just enjoying the World Cup series. What's been going on with that? I think we have a final game coming up this weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, the final will be Spain versus Argentina on Sunday at 3 p.m. in, I can't say the sponsor name, but New York Stadium. And the third place match is supposed to kick off tomorrow as well between England and France. Yeah, two very big matches, two big powerhouse teams. So yeah, very excited, very looking forward to it. And I will also be providing coverage of the DC Open, a tennis tournament, as a part of the ATP tour, and a lot of big stars, a lot of local stars as well. Local DMV hero Francis Tiafoe will be taking center stage, along with some other great tennis players such as Ben Sheldon and Taylor Fritz as well. So yeah, lots of really good sporting events coming up within the district in the next year. So lots to look forward to.
Awesome. And do you have a prediction for the soccer team winner?
I will have to say, I think after Spain's performance versus France in the semifinal, I would have to say Spain. But I feel like every time I pick against Argentina, I end up losing. So, yeah.
And I'm sure the fans will tell you that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's awesome, Will. We really appreciate your sports coverage, keeping us in the loop. And where did we leave off with the U.S. team as well?
So the U.S. team, they had a pretty humbling experience versus the Belgian team as they lost 4-1 in the round of 16. So a lot of it is going to focus on a lot of focus has been brought on because of this loss, the youth soccer programs, and whether they price out a lot of underprivileged families, and whether that is kind of making the sport a pay-to-play or pay-to-win sport, I guess you could say. And yeah, so that's kind of been the main talk around U.S. soccer and just soccer in general in the United States, even though it has been an extremely growing sport. I, for one, I play soccer with my friends all the time. And yeah, so I think the USA national team, they're looking forward to the 2030 World Cup and looking to bring on lots of really great young stars to look forward to.
Awesome. We'll be watching as well via your coverage. Before I want to bring back in Denise, because I think we should shout out a little bit of our back to school edition, which you will be heavily having a hand in. But my last question for you specifically, Will, is there anything, what's the most challenging thing that you've experienced as a sports reporter so far in your time at the Informer?
I think the most challenging thing, besides getting credentials, it's pretty tough sometimes. I would say the most challenging thing, you can always produce a sports story where, here's how the game goes, this is what happened. I think what I have found most challenging, but also most exciting in my reporting, has been diving into the numbers. I always say that the best stories are stories you find, looking through spreadsheets, looking through records requests. Those are the most interesting stories, but I also feel it's the most challenging because it can be very tedious. But in the end, covering sports for me is an amazing journalism career so far, and I hope to continue it.
I want to say to Will, that's why we were so excited when you joined us as an intern this summer, because we know that DC is becoming a big sports town. And at the same time, the daily newspaper reduced their sports staff. I mean, tremendously. Yes. I think they're bringing people back on. But how do you do that? And we're trying to grow ours, to see if we can find a way to make this a permanent position for you. But, with all that's happening in the DMV, but particularly in Washington, there's so many sports teams now. And, and I wanted to ask, because I heard briefly, I don't know what you know about it, about trying to put this dome on the soccer stadium. Do you know about that?
I've personally not heard about that.
Yeah, I understand. I can't remember the name of the stadium, but the soccer
Audi
stadium.
Field?
Audi Field. I think I heard that they're talking about putting a dome on Audi Field. So something to look into, but there's so much happening with sports. And then as I said, which I think you might look into, we have a brand, we're, for folks who are watching, brand new over here in Southeast and Ward 8, when they revitalized or rebuilt Ballou Senior High School, they put a beautiful soccer field there that has never been used, I think, in the past 10 years for soccer. So that says something about your point about making equalizing the playing field, leveling the playing field for young kids to play soccer no matter where they live. And so I like the fact that you're trying to pursue that as a story angle.
Thank you, and I hope to really get some good quotes, good information, and really open up the conversation, because I think it's a conversation that only happens once every 4 years. And I think it's a conversation that always needs to happen when it comes to youth sports.
Mm-hmm. And that is a part of your coverage that I'm personally most excited about, Will. We actually have one of our other interns who can join us now, Tatiana, who can also speak to a little bit. Hi, Tatiana. She can hop in this conversation as well. One thing that Will is going to go out with a bang in his internship covering youth sports, in addition to some other stuff in our back to school edition. Tatiana, why don't you first introduce yourself to our audience, and then feel free to jump in right there.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Tatiana Allen. I'm a Report for America intern, working as an intern for the Washington Informer by way of Report for America.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I know we won't get a chance to delve into your most recent coverage, covering the Let's Get Free concert here in the DMV. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience and what stood out to you that day?
What stood out to me that day was probably the twists and turns of the story. So originally it was supposed to be a march and a concert at the Supreme Court. And what happened that day, of course, was that it was raining and it was pouring. So of course the march never happened, but the concert got taken all the way to Arlington, Virginia, where they were having their convention. And their convention was Until Freedom Rings. And so the concert Let's Get Free was pretty much a chance for the attendees to kind of let go and still remember that even in the moments of mobilizing themselves for change, there's still moments to relax and rest and remind themselves that they are valued and they can feel safe in these spaces.
And what are the specific dangers that we're seeing right now, Tatiana, as it pertains to the 14th Amendment? What is the concern?
I think what really hit on the nail with this story is that it was July 9th, but of course, a few days before that, the Supreme Court had made their decision on birthright citizenship. Of course, we know in the last year that the Trump administration has been utilizing attacks on the 14th Amendment as a way to kind of streamline their plans when it comes to immigration and deportations. And so with the attacks on the birthright citizenship, the 14th Amendment, it would then, if, possibly the Supreme Court had sided with the administration, would have placed millions of people, including those who have been born in America, and even though the future children who have been born in America, to be claimed as illegal, and under this present administration, illegal aliens. And so it would have kind of uprooted millions of lives across the country, and would have declared that even if you are born in this country, that doesn't make you a citizen. And so this was a really important day just because this decision had been made a few days before. And so it was so critical for them to be able to have these conversations of how to go forward in protecting the birthright citizenship. And it was also important to mention that the former co-executive director of the organization, her name is not coming into mind, but she was just made and elected as a representative for a district in New Jersey. So now she will be in Congress. And of course, with the Democratic, caucus, they have now kind of constructed a committee in defending the 14th Amendment. So this is going to be an ongoing fight and an ongoing conversation of how we kind of go about protecting birthright citizenship, as long as this administration stays on the desire to ensure who is defined as a citizen and who isn't.
It's powerful, and it's just sad to see that these conversations are still relevant in 2026. DRB, did you want to jump in? I know I started asking a lot of questions.
No, I mean, I'm like the guest on the show. I'm just enjoying the conversation, and I hope that those that are viewing get a chance to see that while these are students or recent graduates, I mean, they're really deeply involved in the community, the topics that are important, we think, and they think to the community, and they have, they're doing their job as journalists. And so I appreciate that and learning along the way. I mean, I don't know how much, Tatiana, you were really focused on birthright citizenship before this event, and the impact that that's having. I think Maya might even be doing something as it relates to the this administration's focus on, it's a little different, but on Haitians, and how a lot of people are going to be impacted by this. So, and what do you see? Just if you could analyze it a little bit, Tatiana, the impact of the administration's position.
I think the impact of this administration, as I said before, I think is choosing to define a look when it comes to citizenship and who fits that look of citizenship. I think we've seen in the last year this administration change the definitions of certain things. Even when we talk about internationally, claiming white South Africans to be refugees, it brings into conversations of who are we defining in these conversations, and do they fit that look of being the American dream, right? But what's often mistaken in these conversations is that most of the people, including the Haitians who will be impacted by the TPS order being removed, thousands have made their lives in America. These are nurses. These are people who are working essential jobs within our major cities and not countries, states across the country. And so with this removal, I truly do see that we're going to see an impact economically. We're going to see an impact of a lot of essential, workers going to be taken out of their jobs. And of course, when we see the state of the countries that they're coming from, or they're originally from, they're not in the best state to build or continue the life that they want for even their offspring, their own children. So I think this is going to greatly impact the infrastructure of many industries across the country. And I think that this administration is not taking that into account, that the foundation of our economy essentially comes from immigrants. It comes from people who come here looking for a better life and often doing the jobs that most people don't want to do or don't see themselves doing. And they make a life here that helps us, educates us a little bit more on the life that they're trying to build. And they offer essentially the definition of what we're defining the American dream to be. So I think they're going to see those impacts.
It sounds like you really kind of thought this through, and that's what you're hearing, from folks that we're covering in our stories. These are the things that folks are talking about, and so I what can I say, Jada? I don't really need to be here right now, other than to shine a spotlight on these wonderful, wonderful journalists. That's who they are, and how honored we are to have. So if you're watching the show, or if you watch it later, I hope that you will just put in, whether you're watching on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're watching, give them a shout out. And of course, I always say your support for the Washington Informer allows us to make sure that we have these internships available. But, these folks are going to be looking for permanent positions. So, well, we we're going to see what we can do. But, it's our community that supports us that allows us to support them and to grow, just to grow. So that's it for me.
No, beautifully put, DRB. And just in closing, I would love to have you guys give us a little sneak peek preview. I know we're still very much in the building stages of our back to school edition in August, but for our viewers and our readers that are with us, Tatiana, William, Jordan, who you saw earlier, and Razak Diallo will be the hands on the beautiful production that's coming for back to school. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what they can expect from your stories and coverage?
Go ahead, Will. You can start off.
Okay. My coverage will be mainly focused on looking at the different Targets, different Walmarts around the district, and looking at the different price changes in back to school products and mapping them out for the readers, and to not only know where can you get the cheapest school supplies, what Target, where Target, but also just looking at just also the cost of youth sports throughout the district, and whether underprivileged communities are purposely being priced out as opposed to wealthier communities within the district. So that's what I am looking to research coming into the back to school issue.
We can't wait for it. Tatiana, what about you?
So for my story, I will be covering student loans, specifically for incoming freshmen. So of course, we've seen the big beautiful bill come into effect as of last year, but as of this month, now that there will be federal caps on certain loans, whether that is a Parent Plus loan, graduate loans, even subsidized or unsubsidized loans on the part of the student who's actually attending. So my story will kind of be delving into how students, incoming freshmen, will be navigating, as well as alongside their parents, of affording higher education, especially when we have conversations about how tuition is still increasing in many universities. Oftentimes, federal loans don't cover the cost of books and transportation. And even when you're living in a city like DC, it certainly does not cover your housing at a certain time, certain period after, you matriculate. So
help the three of us know it.
So it brings up interesting questions about whether higher education is, one, worth it, right? Especially when we talk about the careers that we want to pursue. But second, is it even attainable, and who's going to be impacted? Of course, when we see, statistically and historically, communities of color are always the ones to be first impacted by these changes, especially when you are living under a certain economic even below the poverty line. But it's interesting to see now that even with the caps, right, it doesn't matter if your parents make below a certain amount. Our Pell Grants, federal work study, even accessible to half of these students if they are not able to fully obtain the amount of loans they need to cover their tuition. So my story hopes to delve into those little topics and niches, and of course incorporate voices of students and parents who are having these conversations within their own homes, especially as we approach back to school season.
Absolutely. And I failed to mention another key member of the team, Evan Aldridge, will also be another one of our summer interns who will be working on the back to school edition. So thank you guys so much. Of course, I have more questions, but not more time. So we will wrap here, but I do just want to give my own personal shout out to you both. It's been a pleasure working with you, honestly being inspired by your coverage and your persistence as reporters these past few weeks. So the sky, I can tell, is already the limit with this group, and I can't wait to see what you guys finish with. For everyone at home or just watching, please make sure you tune into Tatiana Allen and William Daffaa on the WashingtonInformer.com. Check out their stories if you haven't already. Look out for what's next. They're in our newsletter, they're in our paper, and of course, they're coming to you live digitally and now in Let's Talk. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Everybody else, thank you. I guess I'm here to wrap it up. But thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you learned a lot from our pivotal conversations. Please don't let Nelson Mandela Day come and go. Rewatch the conversation, share it, and figure out how you can emulate a little bit of his principles and his impact in your day-to-day. And of course, as always, you know where you can find us on social media, X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Get the content going. There's a lot more coming from the Washington Informer, and you should be the first to see it. Until our next show, this is Jada Ingleton signing off. Thank you.